Nightingale was released in February 2024 and I jumped on board, as who wouldn't? A survival game, magical world, strange creatures, portals. Well, I was in. No need to sell me any further. But after about 15 hours back then I realised that the game was a bit lost. It had real potential, I could see that, but after a bit of play I just threw the towel in. Of course it was and still is early access, so I keep that in mind, but nonetheless. 2 weeks ago I jumped back in as it's had a ton of updates and I see the reviews seem to have picked up. So I played fresh from the start, solo, offline mode for about 40 hours to see what it was like now. Now I hit you with a warning here, this is not a full game review and you will see why. This is what I experienced and saw after a week of play. That's it, no crap, no free game key, no loyalty to the game, just what happened. I'm going to quickly cover the graphics, the sound, puck, the maps, the UI, building, crafting, magic, movement and combat, creatures, the challenges, the overall gameplay which includes progression, the story, and of course some final thoughts. If you have a decent machine, the graphics are really nice. The trees, hills, rocks, foliage, sky, the insects flitting around, the dust motes, the light filtering through the trees, the colours, the sea, the distant view. It's all superb. The graphics are finely sculpted, like my physique, some would say. The little touches, like when you use your umbrella, the magic glittering when you start gliding, the essence fairies, the leaves falling. There is attention to detail and it works well. It is some of the best survival game graphics I've seen, and they get really top marks for that. The sound is immersive. You have the branches snapping from time to time, footsteps, sounds that change as you move over different surfaces, the airiness of the various essence Fae locations, the birds, the sea. It is a masterclass in sound design. Well, this chap is your guide, and clearly huge amounts of time have gone into developing the script and story and his voiceover. It is exceptional, but it isn't all good. Sometimes the stories that he tells are very long-winded, and the use of Old English with frequent use of words that, although they sound great, make little sense to us modern folk, can give us momentary brain freeze as we try to figure out what Puck just said, and then we miss the next few words. And this happens quite a lot. You wonder what he is actually saying half the time, even with it being written on the screen in front of you. Such is the length of some of these stories. I'm sure most of you will start hitting the skip button a fair bit, as I did, as you just want Puck to get to the point. But his animations and presence through the whole game are very well done. In the early part of the game he becomes annoying as he keeps popping up, but as time passes you'll see less and less of him, which is a welcome relief, I will tell you that. And as a side note, Puck is so well worked out that all other NPCs feel distinctly underdone. Often they have no voiceover script, and a pure interaction, well, a text interaction, always feels a little bit hollow, but it is really exaggerated when the main characters had so much attention poured into him. The maps or the realms that you portal into are all procedurally generated, which is when your computer puts it all together based on some rules, and it changes each time. You have 3 base map biome cards: forest, swamp or desert, along with cards for the main type of focus for those realms. Then you have what you might call secondary cards that determine variations to those realms, like allowing for lighter gravity, or when you're forging, needs improving. There are many varieties here. Each of these will change the visual representation of your realm. For example, it may give your realm a reddish tinge, and when I had that, it drove me insane, by the way. Or one of the cards might make your map permanently lit. There's a lot of variety here and it works pretty well. The realms are very nice. They can feel a little vacant at times though. It will not take long before you recognise that a lot of things in the realms are just rinse and repeat, and certain structures can be conquered a certain way or will hold certain things, and are very predictable. But I've never seen this any different with any procedurally generated game worlds. There is a certain set of shapes and combinations of those and rules that apply to those combinations, so they always have a sameness. But all said and done, the realms you venture into can be varied and look great. I'll comment here on the basic usefulness of the UI and not go into the greater issues surrounding which I'll cover shortly. The UI looks nice, the basics are easy to understand, there are plenty of guides, and everything has a relatively good explainer. However, the UI in itself struggles to manage and guide the player on how to do some things. At times I couldn't figure some things out. I got there in the end, but it seemed unnecessarily difficult. I don't think this was just the UI's fault. It is trying to allow an ease of use for a game that is, well, complicated, and at times it falls short of making things seamless. That doesn't mean it is bad, in fact it is quite good. The icons in the UI, for example, are 95% complete with a few placeholder pictures still present, but the art in the UI is fantastic and you won't find better in any other game. Building is simple. You put a blueprint down, and this can include putting down blueprints for the whole house. Then you just insert the required materials and it's all done. And when you have an NPC helping you, this can really speed things up as well. I had no issues at all with placing structures, moving things around. It was flawless. The buildings, the lighting, top points. This is where things started to get complicated in the game, and I'll talk more about this in the progression section, but crafting does seem to be overly complicated. At one point, and I'll call it mid-game, I think I had 28 crafting benches or related structures. I could have torn some of those down, but that is how many you're going to have to build to get mid-tier gear. My benches were everywhere in my house. When the game was first released, crafting was, in my opinion, absolutely dreadful. And when I started playing again, I was worried about that still, but it was a lot better. Yes, complicated, but they have implemented some quality of life mechanics that really help. Having said all that, crafting, placement of benches, the upgrades, how they all interrelate, the tiers of goods that you find, meaning you can often find, for example, 4 types of leather, and I think there is something like 20 types of leather all up. It can make for quite a bloated crafting system that is detailed but is just a bit clumsy. And then of course you have the various magics that you have to work into the game, and on that point, magic is the core of this game. You will see it all around. The worlds you explore and live in are made of it. There are magical infusions, charms, potions, magical portal cards galore, and of course magical monsters, both good and evil. The game is based around magic, and everywhere you look, you see it. When I used to play Dungeons & Dragons, there was always something to be a little cautious of, and that is over-distribution of magic items. If they are everywhere, then ultimately they don't really seem that magical. They become mundane. And that would be my criticism here. The more I explored, the more items I found, but also they all became a bit the same. And as an example, at one point I had a box full of charms that were all the same, and that was only at the mid-game state. Certainly the infusions you apply to equipment is a good idea, but there was a lack of clarity on how to do all this, how to remove them off items, if it can be done. And I would have liked to see combinations of infusions on gear adding bonuses like sets. The game is magic based and they do a good job of portraying that overall. I was fortunate to play when the new update came out for climbing and pickaxes, and this improved the gameplay quite dramatically. In fact, it was so bad when I first played, it was one of the definite reasons I threw the towel in. The game, I feel, is designed for third-person view. The game looks visually much better when played like that. The climbing, gliding and general animations all look much better in third person. However, I found the aiming to be off when using third person, so I always reverted to first person play. The overall movement and combat is good, functional but very well done. There is a good array of creatures, however some maps can just have a limited range of different creatures spawning on them. I'm not sure exactly, but on some maps I'd say you only came across half a dozen wild creatures, that is, per map, which can make the maps feel a little vacant. The creatures themselves are well done, some are cute, some have real presence and offer unique challenges to deal with, and animations and AI I should say, are of a high standard now. I noticed a big improvement in the bound creatures, that is the bad dudes. They are much better, they have ranged attacks, some are quite fearsome, a massive improvement here and quite fun to deal with. In particular if you wander around at night a lot, those buggers spawn in quite frequently. What I mean by challenges are the various key challenges you will find on maps like Fae Towers, Towers of Insight, Agility and the like. Each world has at least a Fae Tower along with a number of other challenges, and your home world will have a lot more. These are all well drawn and well thought out, but they are very repetitive, and within a short period of time you'll be smashing most of them out without any difficulty at all. Nightingale is complex, far more so than most survival type games. Progression is through two main things: completing quests to unlock cards to allow you further access to the realms and also unlock more items, and also through your gear, which you level up to not just to be able to unlock quests with a certain gear score, but also just to make you tougher to be able to complete those quests. The concept here is not unique. Gear level progress is common in a lot of games, as is questing to progress, but early on it all becomes a bit overwhelming, and it isn't helped by the story not always aligning with the map you are on. I was often left baffled as to what or where to go next. Without the help of other YouTubers, I would have been totally lost. In regards to gear progression, you can play for hours with certain clothing, weapons, tools, and you can upgrade them with essences, put infusions on them, and then put charms on them. No issues with any of that, but then you unlock the next lot of equipment, and just like that you throw most of all your old upgraded stuff away, never to be seen again. Well, it's probably not as bad as that, but you get my drift. As I've mentioned in other parts of this review, this story is excellent, detailed and well scripted, quite superb. Puck is excellent, the other NPCs maybe not so much, and 80% of the time the story makes sense, but the quests as you unlock them can be all over the place, and I think most people will be quite confused at some point as to what to do next at some stage, simply as the story isn't aligning with the map you are on. The story is about being lost in the realms, and I guess in that aspect they nailed it, because I often felt lost. I felt that the game was caught between different visions. It wants to be story driven and provide an expansive tale with numerous quests. It wants to regiment progression through gear and not character levels, but at the same time it wants to encourage free roaming and exploration. The combination of these does not work as well as it should. The free roaming can easily lead you outside of the story, and then you find yourself confused, just not sure where to go next, or maybe even how to do things, how to get things, simply how to play the game. The devs clearly have a vision for Nightingale, and that vision is expansive and detailed. Early on they have built a complex and rich world, and particularly in the crafting area, but like many games I've seen, the vision should probably have been pared back just a little bit. The game right now is very good, but it could have been excellent if they had focused on providing a more cohesive, measured experience, but I do keep in mind that it is still early access. But I really enjoyed playing Nightingale despite some of its flaws. It is definitely visionary, but after 70 hours of play I'd had enough of often feeling a little baffled and frustrated. Maybe it was just me, but I don't think so, according to some of the Reddit threads that I've viewed. I guess Nightingale is like two young lovers, romping around in the dark. It is exciting, of course, but at some point one or both of them may well be inwardly frustrated. It does not mean that they didn't enjoy their romping, quite the opposite often, but they will hope for better next time. Thanks for watching. See you in the next chapter. Don't forget to like and subscribe, you legends.